What's a red flag when looking for a job? If the job description has about 20 items of which one is sales, your job is going to be sales. If the job description has multiple items, then the majority of your duty is going to be the worst one of those items. A bit like occasional weekend means occasional weekend off. Earning potential is stressed over current salary. In 5 years you can be making X. Cool. Add that to my offer is guaranteed and we have a deal. Well, it's not guaranteed. Oh, gotcha. So what you're saying is that statement holds no value. Master's degree preferred for an entry-level job. Starting salary, 30K 40K. Making jokes about overtime and crunch time. Guaranteed it's going to be a nights and weekends are optional. But not actually optional. Place. I went to an interview where the guy said, "We don't end the day until everyone is done." And sometimes that takes another hour on a busy day. Then my genius brain said, "Yeah, I don't want to work constant overtime." What was I thinking, expecting to go home when my contract says I go home? In reality, maybe an hour overtime can easily turn into 2 hours overtime every day. Having to pretend this is normal is toxic AF. When I was a GM for Chipotle, I would constantly work 12-plus hour days. Salary. And one busy weekend I worked 15 hours on Friday and 15 on Saturday, and on Sunday I decided to go to the gas station and eat my donuts in my car and just listen to the radio for like 10 extra minutes to just kind of unwind. You better believe the area manager was there the next day with a write-up in hand because I was 10 minutes late on Sunday, but when I asked what about the other 10 extra hours I put into my store the previous days, that's just part of the job description. Initially unpaid, but will result in full-time offer upon completion of XYZ. This will be an excellent chance to expand your portfolio and gain lots of exposure with leading global brands. Graphic designer here. My favorite response to this: "You can die from exposure." Musician here. That is also my favorite response. "Come play at my bar." Quote. "Okay. How much you wanna pay me?" Quote. "Well, nothing. But you'll get good exposure." Quote. "People die from exposure. You want me to play? I need cash money. That's why I busk instead. It ain't a living, but it pays the beer." I once told a bar manager that I usually play in the subway for booze money and that I could cut the middleman at this point. He looked at me and said, "You're doing this backwards. You're supposed to be a musician that drinks, not an alcoholic that plays music." This shit had me thinking. Not gonna lie. High staff turnover. There's a place near me that's always hiring high-level tech folks. And I mean asterisk always, asterisk. Just makes me think. Meat grinder. Probably pays an absolute killing, but you're chained to your work laptop 24/7. We work hard and play hard. It actually means all work and for sure no play. Translation. You will work 60-plus hours a week, and are expected to come to the company happy hour whether you drink or not. Also, we all stay here too much then go get hammered because we hate our spouses and children and will do anything to avoid going home. Hiring lots of people on the same position. Everyone who calls gets a job. Often means the job is either bullshit or they're setting you all up to compete for the actual job. I had this once. Turned out it was commission only. Door-to-door vacuum sales. I did that for a month. My breaking point was when I was told I couldn't carry any water with me in what is essentially desert climate in middle of summer. Was told to request a glass of water from random strangers. Same if I needed to use the bathroom, monsieur. I wound up so parched I was risking real dehydration. And the other salespeople had the nerve to drink all my water. Oh, and I sold a grand total of 3 vacuums. I actually has 5 sales. But I quit on a Friday and by Monday they claimed my last 2 sales were cancelled and I owed them something like $150 for accessories. Convinced them to zero out my entire account and just close it. ETA. Since I have a lot of replies asking which vacuum, it was Kirby. When they ship talk previous employees, they're going to do it to you. Same goes for them insulting current employees behind their back. I saw that during my orientation. 2 supervisors were loudly talking about how useless an employee was after they got off the phone with "Hi monsieur," even if it's true. The fact that they don't care who hears them is a sign of a toxic work environment. Always ask them why the person you are replacing left the job. The way they answer this could be a red flag. I always ask, how is performance measured and what's the next step, when will I hear back, and any other question that may have come up during the interview. But I like this question. I'm going to add it to my interview question list depending on the truthfulness of the answer. This could have saved me from a job a few years back. I have started asking, what does success look like in this role? And what goals or issues was this role created to address? Quote, the second one is less common, but I do client services, sales support, and sometimes having a full-time person for that is new to the monsieur. My favorite thing to ask is, imagine you've filled this role. It's now a year later, and the person you've hired has exceeded your expectations. What have they done to do so? What does that look like? Quote, really makes them articulate exactly what they expect from you. Hey, this is good. It'll put them on their toes, but not in a defensive way. I like it. I took a security guard job in college as a part-time gig. In the interview, the owner said the guy the first was replacing was just lazy. On my first day, I asked one of my co-workers, and it turns out he was shot in the face while on duty. Too lazy to drive himself to the hospital, I guess. If the guy couldn't even keep bullets out of his own body, how can he be expected to keep people out of a building? The guy probably didn't take the advice of shooting yourself with lower caliber bullets and work your way up until they can't go into your body anymore. Tolerance for bullets. We are a family here, which means this is how they try to make up for the shitty pay and long hours. This is the one I was looking for. Yes, it's a family in the sense that the company expects me to be willing to do anything to help you and your company anytime, anywhere, anyhow. You and your brothers and sisters, aka the other overworked unappreciated peons, or conditioned to work harder to help each other out. The problem there is that the only people who benefit are the people at the top. It's essentially a predatory practice designed to force extra effort out of you by abusing your empathy and your connection to your coworkers. Johnny McCorporate fuckbag literally wouldn't flinch if you dropped dead at your desk from the stress. He would just be pissed at the loss of output and immediately be concerned with finding a new cog for the machine he calls a family. I got a call from a Subway I applied to telling me my interview was in 10 minutes. That was the first I heard from them after submitting my application. So, years ago, my old company was hiring a mechanical engineer job, but the director of the department suddenly had a family emergency and had to go out of town the next day. They called the last applicant and said, "Can you come in and interview?" Like now? The candidate explained that he was out and about, and couldn't get dressed or anything. The director basically said, "Don't care." That's how the dude that got the job got to interview in a black band t-shirt and ripped jeans. So, before you red flag it, make sure that a sudden interview isn't warranted. They did this kind of poor scheduling to the newest guy in my department. Except it was more like, "Hey, we want to interview you, but the only openings in all 3 of our schedules are 3 hours from now, 2 days from now, or maybe next week." He chose the 3 hours in. 8 months later, is one of our best employees. The only red flag there is that the upper management is always busy. But if you hate micromanagement, it's perfect. A former coworker shared this tidbit with me years ago and it works wonders. Try to schedule your in-person interview as late in the afternoon as possible. Relevant to your position. If you're expecting a 9 to 5 job, schedule your interview for 4 o'clock or 4:30. You probably discussed after-hours work etc. during the interview. When you are done, you should be able to look around. Are people still won't working? Is the parking lot empty? You can match up the evidence with what was claimed during the interview, and from that, judge how realistic the entire job description is based on how they treated the after-hours work. Just make sure there isn't a staggered schedule or multiple shifts. Most of my positions are listed from 8 to 430, but about half the office works 6 to 230 or 9 to 530. Then since most of my salary guys want to climb the ladder and appear busy, they stick around for 15 to 20 minutes to leave after their bosses. This was a red flag I had during an interview process once. I was doing a phone interview for an IT position, and the person I was interviewing with basically changed the details of the job during the interview. Instead of the first shift hours the position promised, he immediately went into saying it would be 6+ months before the opportunity for first shift would even be possibility. Also, he was big into asking how dedicated I was to jobs. The idea of weekend shifts, again, not in the original description, kept coming up, and how everyone had to be a team player and help out on weekends when needed. The kicker was when he started talking about how many hours he worked. He was bragging that he was up at 6 a.m. every day working. Then he'd go into the office for the day, come home to see his family for dinner, and get right back to work until 10 to 11 p.m. every night. I had never been turned off from a job faster in my life. He asked me to think things over, and he'd send me some paperwork via email. Needless to say, I called him the next morning and declined the job. It was the worst interview process I'd ever been in. I'm in IT as well. Some of the interviews I had before landing my current job were very similar. Had one interview where the manager belittled one of the techs just before he walked into the room. Monsieur probably didn't realize the door was open, lol. I'm really lucky though, since my current position is awesome. I work with some really friendly people. It's a small company and that's what I prefer. Couple of things. Asterisk open interviews asterisk. Admittedly I've fallen for this a few times, but I was young and stupid. It's clear they have a high turnover, so they're trying to secure as many people as they can. Most of the time these open interview jobs don't have salaries, just commission. Asterisk refusal or reluctancy to share details over the phone asterisk. This is what usually ends up in you turning up to an open interview. If they withhold information about the role, what you'll be doing, etc., that's a huge red flag. They just want to get you in the door for an interview to pressure you into joining. I've been seeing this a lot. What is an open interview? You're being interviewed with like 10 other people at the same time. If you ask them what the pay is and they start off with what you could be making after so much time, and they start rambling about the raise process, run the other way. During my last interview for an entry-level semi-skilled press operator position, the HR guy says my pay will be like this. If you hit your rate every day, factor in your attendance bonus. Then if you go over rate, we'll pay you piece rate. They don't. I checked. And if the packing line gets your orders out on time and your quality is high enough and we don't get docked with any fees, a process over which I'll have no control after I wrap my pallet, you'll be making $15.20 per hour. Or more if you sign up for Saturdays. But that's not what I asked. I asked what my base pay was going to be, to which he replied, $10.61 per hours. No thank you. I've never heard such a complete pile of runaround bullshit. Looking for rock stars in the job description. Unless of course the posting is in fact for a position to be a rock star. Similarly, ads that read along the lines of, asterisk, do you like sports? Come be part of our team, monsieur, we're laid back and have fun. We want all of our MVPs to succeed. So we work hard, and we play hard too. Asterisk. If they're trying to sell asterisk you asterisk on the work environment in the ad. Most of the time, you should run. I'm sure there are exceptions. But most of the time, You can substitute rock stars and sports and MVPs in all these ads interchangeably, with all of it loosely translating to, "We're gonna load a bunch of you up in a van at the butt crack of dawn to drop in neighborhoods for door-to-door cold call selling cutlery." This needs to be further up. A good job doesn't get all flashy. They don't need to convince you. They know what you want. You're thirsty for a good job. They've got it. There's a confidence to a good job you can vibe when they're desperately telling you why you want to work there. Either you're overqualified for the position by a long shot, or the position is dog shit. And either way, you're not getting paid enough. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.